Yeah.
So it's interesting, right? Because we think about motivation as a good thing. Like, we think about it as a positive quality. Like, we strive for motivation. But what Alchem is telling us is that his motivation is born of desperation. And
Yeah.
what we're sort of hearing is almost like a bottom of the barrel kind of story, where he hit rock bottom. Like, there's nowhere else to go but down, and it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of chance to go up. And oddly enough, I think that there's a lot about Alchem that I think I can sort of personally relate to as a gifted kid who struggled. I mean, I think out of all the groups that we've sort of talked about, I think, I identify with y'all the most. And I think there's a certain desperation to it. I think there are also like elements of like ceding control, right? So Alchem, like, you guys don't trust yourselves because you're not going to do any more than the bare minimum. And so, like, all Alchem has to do is like sign up, and then there's no takebacks, right? He
No,
frees
yeah,
him,
absolutely.
he frees himself of his mind, because it doesn't matter whether he wants to or feels like it or whatever, because they're not gonna give him a choice. And so he's like sort of ceding control of his life, and then like relying on them to provide. As he said, he responds well to regimented structure, which I imagine actually all of y'all will. That if there's a situation that's challenging and regimented and doesn't give you guys a choice, then y'all will actually do really well. I think, though, it's kind of interesting because, I'm kind of curious about ego. Alchem, do you think that your ego has anything to do with your decision?
Could you elaborate a bit more on what you like? I mean, I don't know. Could you like ask the question a different way? I'm kind of
Sure,
confused by it.
absolutely. How do you feel about yourself joining the military?
I mean, I'm happy with the decision. I
Sure,
like
I
I
think it's a good decision.
like yeah, like growing up, I've always had like I feel like the reason I always did well in school is because like it wasn't a choice. It was like, you wake up like, and your mom is like, all right, get in the car, or it's like, hey, the school bus is here, or like your dad takes you, or whatever the situation is, and you go and you sit. You can't really like leave, right? And your teachers are your authority figures. They tell you what to do, and you just kind of you got the regimented schedule. And I mean, it feels really good that like it's kind of like obviously it's not like super self-imposed, but the fact that it's like it's a decision that I'm making, but I also know that like once I kind of like what you said, once I sign that, we know whether or not I want to do it. I'm in for however many years I sign up for, right?
Mhm.
um like at that point, that's pretty like it feels great.
Yeah. So let me ask the question in a different way. How do you feel telling other people that you're joining the military?
Kind of weird. I so I mean, the military is like a really good opportunity for me, but it's kind of out of pocket for me. It's not something that I would like ever really consider doing. Um, it was kind of something like it was born out of desperation, and it's not really like within myself to do it. Like I wouldn't like just if I had the choice between like going to college. Like if you had asked me 3 years ago, I would have never said I was going to the military. That would have been like the bottom of the list.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of apprehensive about it. About like the way I tell people about it. Um,
And how do people
yeah,
usually respond?
they're normally like, "Oh, wow, that's a great decision. That'll be great for you," and all of that stuff.
So what did y'all notice about everyone shared their story, and who did we gravitate towards?
The one who'd made a decision or who'd done something.
Right? So when Alchem shares what he's done, what is he met with?
Praise.
Praise, admiration. And so let's just think a little bit about, before the decision outcome. So where was he before he decided to join the military? Where was he?
Very low spot.
Right? So failed out of
Yeah.
college, sounds like, or dropped out or something.
Yeah.
and so I think because I sort of saw pieces of this in myself. I don't think joining the military is a bad idea, by the way, just for the record, but I want us to understand a little bit about why we make decisions and like what drives us. So like Alchem gives us a very logical reason. The first reason he gave us was super logical. It's for financial security. It makes sense. Like if he's like anxious about his financial security and whatnot, like it's a good reason. We dig a little bit further and we get to desperation, right? That like even though he sort of talks about financial insecurity, that like he's living this life and he wakes up one day and he's like, I can't live this life anymore. I have to live a different one. And I think oddly enough, what you guys maybe admire about him, and here I could be projecting, but I almost remember like I used to wish for catastrophe. I used to wish for being tested. You know, I wanted to like just like what I hated more than anything else was like limbo and like not needing to scrape by. Like I would have been fine if you had said, I'm going to drop you into an arena and you have to fight a lion to the death and I'm going to give you a club. I would have been like, hell yeah, let's go, baby.
Yep.
Right? Give me death or give me glory. Like I just can't stay stuck in between anymore. You guys feel that way?
Oh,
Yes.
Tell me about
Yeah.
that.
Absolutely.
Jacob?
Oh, there's so many. So the joke, like the weird thing I tell my friends, honestly, I'd feel better when I'm sick. I'd actually be more productive when I got sick. Because like expectations would drop and it's just like, oh, what can I get done while I'm feeling crummy? And I actually get more done. But like there's so many there's like so many dimensions of like my anxiety dropped when COVID happened. I felt better and like more eager to be productive when COVID occurred. Let's see what else. My mom recently got diagnosed with cancer, and that wasn't great. But it's like it wasn't like crushing. It was like I think for like the week around that, I was like a little bit more productive. Like it's very bizarre. Like
Is that something that y'all can relate to?
Maybe earlier. I think I tried taking advantage of the fact that I would act under if I had no other choice, and I tried saying, okay, if I sign myself for all these other things, then which will all be catastrophes if they fail, then I'll do them. But then I didn't, and then the catastrophe happened, and I survived, and I realized that I guess there is no way out. Maybe that's just
Yeah, so like you guys see what y'all are doing is that you're not, it's actually brilliant and sad. So like what Sad is doing is he recognizes that he can't motivate himself. Right? So he like recruits the outside world to put deadlines onto him.
Yep.
And the same thing that Alchem's doing. It's like I can't control myself, so I'm going to create a situation in which there's artificial desperation and I'll be forced to act. And then Sad really gets screwed because he doesn't act. And then you know what the really damning thing is about not acting? Is that he survives. See, if he had really been punished, then he would act the next time. Does that make sense? Like the real damning thing is that like the consequences weren't bad enough. Because if the consequences were bad, then if he did it again, then he would act. Y'all see that? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really what I'm interested in is I feel like anyone, if they're in a life or death situation, gravitates towards life, or if they're in a catastrophic situation, they do anything they can to get out of it. But if you're not in that place, how do you go towards ambition or like success? Yeah, I don't understand how people have the energy for that kind of motivation and not like just avoiding death.
So tell us what it's like to not have energy. right? The extra stuff.
You ever
I
watch Revenge? Go ahead.
okay. Well, it doesn't feel great. It's like the days just kind of slip by. You do your work, and then I don't know. You play some games, and then like yeah, the time just gets filled with things that are not really valuable to you. But then you don't even know what the things that are valuable. You don't know what is valuable to you, so you just kind of yeah, time just slips by. That's the best way I can describe it.
It feels kind of like monotonously flipping pages. Like you're just kind of like going from one day to the next. Um, like when I was going through this last thing, I was also working a lot, and it was just like this kind of like day in, day out, wake up, do school, go to work, just like kind of like this dread. And like whenever I had free time, I was like you know, I was doing like partying or like doing drugs or like something to fill the time. And it was just like I don't know, it was like hellish. I could like feel myself kind of almost like decaying, but it felt like I couldn't do anything about it. Like I couldn't take the first step.
It's just like gray and dystopian. But
Yeah.
seriously, like it is, right?
No, yeah, absolutely.
No,
Yeah.
no.
It feels like
What
like an Orwellian like nightmare.
what I'm really appreciating is that we're talking about this with a bunch of fucking gifted kids, so the number of syllables per word is so high. Monotonously and dystopian.
Yeah.